but just one example of another promise broken, and we're not even 45 days in. People, if you've stuck with me this far in this podcast, don't forget, we're less than 45 days in to this chaos. Can you imagine the horror of 4 years of this insanity? So, welcome to another episode of Unbelievable Reality. I am Roy Arthur, and off we go. Like to start every podcast with literary reference. Kind of dug this up. I'm actually reading 2 books right now, which I think are really, really good. I'm farthest into this novel by Dorian Lynskey. It's called Everything Must Go, and it's the stories, as it says here, the stories we tell about the end of the world. I thought it was pretty relevant right now, considering what chaos we're being forced to endure in the United States of America. I find the first portion of this about religion, and specifically the apocalyptic religions, most of which happen to be monotheistic, i.e., let's just make it easy, Islam, Judaism, and good old friend Christianity, and how they're desperately seeking annihilation of the species so that the mythical God can come back and sort out the good people from the bad people, and then they get to go to their own version of heaven because the life on earth isn't good enough. The mythologies are so twisted and just ridiculous that we're even having conversations about them in 2025. Blows my fucking mind. However, Everything Must Go. This is a really, really good read, and it's really enlightening. And he talks about end-of-world scenarios, not just the apocalyptic versions from, like I said, the 3 monotheistic religions, but also the apocalypse of getting hit by a comet or a meteor. Our most real fear right now, nuclear annihilation. And how these have affected society and really actually become, in their own ways, fake truths that so many people believe. Anyway, check it out, Everything Must Go. I really wanted to get into another round of American history for the history deniers out there, because I just love eviscerating their points of view. It's so amusing and enlightening for them. Most of these people obviously have never read a book in their life, unless they were forced to in 4th grade, and I think that was C-Spot Run. Anyway, there's always been this ongoing debate about globalization, like it's a new fucking phenom that just appeared on the scene here in the last 75 years and led to the downfall of American manufacturing. I want to clarify what led to the downfall of American manufacturing. That was called globalization and offshoring. And it wasn't because we didn't have the workers. It wasn't because we didn't have the technology. It wasn't because we weren't good at it, because we were the best. It was because jobs started really getting offshored in the 70s and up until now because it was cheaper to make shit of less value that would have to be replaced. So we, the consumers, our label, the consumers, fuck you whoever came up with that, just a big shout out. We're not consumers, we're fucking human beings, we're people. Anyhow, the reason that offshoring was so successful and is the bane of our existence today is because of corporate greed. Seriously, why would you pay somebody $15 an hour to make sneakers in the United States of America when you could pay somebody in China, India, Pakistan, Vietnam, Cambodia, Thailand, India, take your fucking pick, to do the same job for 50 cents an hour? Now, the product isn't going to be as good, but you know what? Corporations don't give a shit. Everything today, and I covered this in a previous podcast, that most people haven't seen. It's about advertising, and it's about planned obsolescence. And planned obsolescence is not some sort of terminology. It's a real thing. It's a corporate strategy. Because it makes sense. If your car lasted for 20 years, how often would you buy a fucking car? But if your car goes to shit every 5 years, ironically at the same time that you paid off your loan, then you have to buy another one. So that allows us to continue to sell cars. See? And the car dies after 5 years, right after you paid it off, because that's a plan. You know what's really desirable? I'm going to be all over the map right now, so just bear with me and stick with it. This should be entertaining and educational as fucking always if you can maintain the attention span. What's one of the hottest collector's items out there on eBay nowadays and in antique stores all across the country is vintage toys. Vintage Tonka trucks and Barbie dolls and you name it. Wagons, you know, remember the Red Rider, the Red Flyer wagon that, well, you wouldn't remember if you're a child born anytime after 1990, but prior to that, there would be memory. Now, there is a sense of nostalgia in buying old toys, but also there's a really strong rationale because old toys last. Because they were built to last. Because quality mattered back then. And the majority of those toys that you see were made out of steel and rubber and tin and real components. And a lot of them had a stamp underneath that said made in the USA. When was the last time you saw a toy for a child that was made in the USA? Think about that for a few minutes. How long was it? How long has it been? I'll bet a lot of you have never even seen a toy that was made in the USA. Because it was cheaper for Hasbro, Mattel, all of these fucking toy manufacturers to make them where? Yeah, you guessed it. Vietnam, Cambodia, Thailand, China, India. I already went through the fucking list. So they could make more profit. Now, all these toys they make now, they're all a piece of shit. Think about it. Once again, I talked about this in a previous episode about advertising. Do you feel good now? You buy Johnny a toy at Walmart, it costs you $30, you bring it home, they play with it for 3 days, and it breaks. You're going to go buy another one. That was a plan. There is no quality anymore. I'm going to jump to politics in a minute because I'm pissed as fuck. And I got to get this out on camera, on my podcast, because I want people to never forget. But anyway, globalization has been around forever. For fucking ever. Obviously, the majority of you have never heard of the Silk Road, the Spice Road, spice ships in Europe, and in Asia, and in Russia, and in China. You have no idea. You don't even know who Marco Polo is. You think Marco Polo's a game you play in a pool. You have no idea about Marco Polo, the adventurer, traveler, explorer, and chronicler of the Silk Road back, I don't know, about 1,000 years ago. You don't know anything about Hannibal, you know nothing about Rome, you know nothing about the collapse of Rome, the creation of Christianity as we know it today. I get it. You don't know any of that shit because you don't know. For people who do know, or think that they might know, or that they might even be interested in knowing, a good place to start is with Charles C. Mann. 2 books, 1491 and 1493. If you really want to hear the history of colonization of South America specifically, and also China and Hawaii, and why Hawaii became such an important place, take a gander, spend some time. This is heavy lifting, Charles C. Mann, 1491. Okay, so I can't stand it any longer. Once again, I wanted to do American History Redo Part 2, which is really me going into how this entire country is stolen. Because it is. And I have a tremendous list of Indian nations, not tribes, they were nations, that no longer exist. And I really wanted to explore all that in this podcast, but I decided I'm going to do that in my next podcast, because right now, 2 days ago, Vladimir Zelenskyy came from Ukraine to have a meeting in the White House with the new regime and the sycophants involved in the regime, Agent Orange, the useful idiot, and his team of idiots, morons, and fools. And we in this country have never seen what happened in the Oval Office 2 days ago. And the way the Trump regime tried to force Zelenskyy into signing a zero-sum deal where he gave over half the mineral rights in his entire country to the United States with no assurance that we were actually going to continue to give him aid. We were supposed to just give it to him as a payback for all we've fucking done so far to stop the Russians from coming in and stealing a country right out from under our noses. And the sum that we've given so far is not $320 billion, it's $187 billion. Europe has given $238 billion. No, we are not alone in this. And a real quick sidebar. The Europeans are not asking for any of that money back. Only the mythological regime of the Agent Orange Carrot Top and his mythical cadre of morons came up with the illusion that somehow Ukraine owed us for what we gave them for nothing, and that we were going to somehow, because you got it right, Donald Trump's such a master negotiator, he was going to go in and negotiate mineral rights to get our money back, affecting the entire future of a foreign country we have no fucking business with other than supporting their right to freedom. Oh, by the way, that's what we're supposed to do. The United States of America is the defender of democracy and freedom for the entire world to see, at least up until 2 days ago, when the Trump regime showed its hand, played all of its cards, and came out of the closet and just flatly supported Russia in their blind ambition and their need to take. The Trump administration made it absolutely clear exactly whose fucking side they're on. And it is not Ukraine. It is Russia. No ands, ifs, or buts. Why is Donald Trump in Vladimir Putin's pocket? I'm going to leave that to the experts, the pundits, the talking fucking heads. You guys figure it out. It doesn't matter why. What matters is that it's real. It's a fact. There's no denying it or hiding it. Just like there's no denying or hiding the arrogance and hubris to claim that we are taking Gaza, because we're in Israel's pocket too. Donald Trump and his Kushner son-in-law in particular are in Israel's pocket and are all on board with further genocide in Gaza. Fuck the Palestinians is the war cry, and it's happening right now. Israel just announced they're cutting off all access to aid because they're not happy with the ceasefire deal. They're never going to be happy with the ceasefire deal. They're never going to be happy with any deal until they've completely taken over the entire Middle East. Until Zionism reigns supreme. Until people finally realize that the Jewish religion is the only one true faith. Because they're going to be supported by the only other one true faith, Christianity. What happened in the Oval Office 2 afternoons ago, was an absolute humiliating embarrassment for any American that has half a brain cell. Trump trying to bully Zelenskyy for the entire world to see, lost control. JD Vance, your best advice for you, JD, just shut the fuck up. You just sound like a fucking idiot every time you open your fucking mouth. Oh, and by the way, Marjorie Taylor Greene's boyfriend, who thought it'd be really fucking funny to say, hey, can't you afford a suit? Hey, you twat. You got roasted. Remember Zelensky's comment forever. I'll never forget this. Maybe next time I'll show up in a costume like yours. Or maybe I'll have a nicer costume. Or maybe I'll have a poorer costume. Roasted. You arrogant pig. And while I'm on the subject of further embarrassment to our country, let me finish with this. What happened in the White House, in the Oval Office, was a massive embarrassment for the United States of America and just lowered our stature on the world stage by a force factor of 10. What is coming out of the rest of the world in reaction to this is that A, the United States has gone mad. B, they are completely untrustworthy. And C, we cannot make any deals with them whatsoever. So we're on our own. Our moral high ground, this supposed moral high ground this country's feasted on since World War II, of being the bastion of light, the bastion of democracy, a beacon of hope in an uncivilized, unruly world, is gone. It is over. The ugly underside, the ugly underbelly of the United States of America has been exposed for the world to see. And this will have global repercussions. And if you don't think that's true, start viewing some foreign fucking news for a change. Get off the TikTok bubble. I'm a member. I got a lot of followers, but it's a vacuum. Get your news from BBC, from fucking, oh my God, Al Jazeera. At least it's fucking impartial and it's real news. What we're fed here in the United States is useless. By the way, Jeff Bezos, thank you so much for castrating the Washington Post and making it an inconsequential rag, which it was already an inconsequential rag to begin with, but now it's absolutely the only use for the Washington Post these days is to start a fire in your fireplace. That's it. Thank you for eradicating that bastion of freedom, Jeff Bezos, so you can get fatter and richer and make your workers' lives more miserable. Yeah, a big fat fuck you to you, you oligarch son of a bitch. Boy, I'm all over the map this afternoon. Can't help myself. While I'm on the subject of national embarrassments, the Great Migrant Roundup. Oh, golly. And this is going to lead me into the final part of this segment of this podcast. The Great Migrant Roundup. Oh, was MAGA in a froth, in a lather, so ready for the Great Migrant Roundup. Finally, we're going to get rid of the brown people. Ta-da! Oh my God, every white Christian nationalist was thrilled to death. Well, how are the results of the Great Migrant Roundup going so far after 30 days of continuous effort that has involved every law enforcement agency in the United States of America? Every fucking buddy. Department of Homeland Security, FBI, local police, sheriffs, National Guard, ICE, alcohol, tobacco, and firearms, Border Patrol, fucking now we've mobilized the military to the southern border, which no one is bothering to cross anymore, by the way. So we're going to spend a bunch of money on soldiers to go down there and play pinochle. For most of you, you don't know what fucking pinochle is, so I'll just say poker. Okay? Because there's nobody crossing. The great Migrant Roundup in 30 days has managed to round up about 20,000 migrants, illegals. 20,000. So we've spent approximately somewhere in the neighborhood of $500,000 per migrant. At this rate, we will get rid of the 9 million of illegals that are lurking throughout our country in approximately 25 years. Provided they don't have children. Provided more illegals don't come across the border. 25 years. The lesson in all this is when you put a fat, racist, white pig in charge of a law enforcement action where nobody respects him or responds to him, and where really all he wants to be is in front of cameras so he can act like a tough guy, it doesn't work. And that's just another one, or that's the beginning of the segue here, but just one example of another promise broken, and we're not even 45 days in. People, if you've stuck with me this far in this podcast, don't forget, we're less than 45 days in to this chaos. Can you imagine the horror of 4 years of this insanity? 4 years of this madness? That's what we're looking at. We are staring down the barrel of 4 years of idiocy. Of literally the disintegration of our country. I don't think this regime has the ability to turn the country into the theocratic dictatorship that they so desperately want to, because they're just too goddamn stupid. You mobilized every single law enforcement agency in the United States and you got rid of 20,000 migrants, illegal immigrants, in a month? That's your best work? And all the while they were keeping up with campaign promises, they've done some really nifty things that aren't going to have any repercussions at all. Let's talk about gutting the FAA, and all of a sudden we don't have any flight controllers anymore. So what did they have to do? They had to beg desperately to get people to come back to work. So far, half of them said, fuck you, I'll take my unemployment. The Food and Drug Administration. MAGA, first of all, MAGA, let me back up. I know you were all hot and bothered about illegal immigrants, and golly, I wish you were getting your blood up, but it's failing, so suffer. But did you vote to get on an airplane with your family on that vacation you've had to save for probably 5 years? You don't make any fucking money because you're illiterate and you work menial day jobs. Are you ready to get on an airplane? Should be a lot of it fun. You can add it to the adventure. Oh, and don't worry about gutting the Food and Drug Administration. Shit, what's that matter to you? The folks that are reliant on Medicaid and Medicare. By the way, there's a resolution on the table right now as they try to give a further tax cut to the biggest corporations and wealthiest people in the United States to cut Medicare and Medicaid by $880 billion. Oh, and while we're on the subject of cutting costs, catching fraud, and teaching folks a lesson, Doji is whooping some ass. At last total, so far they've found about $4 billion in waste in a government budget that runs to the tune of $4 trillion a year. Less than 1/10 You guys are crushing it too. Call up Tom Holman and ICE, get together, throw a party, and enjoy your success. Yeah, the Food and Drug Agency, don't worry about it, because if you're lower income, you can only buy the cheapest meats and produce and discount groceries that are out there. It Don't worry about them being full of listeria or things like, shit, the plague, salmonella. Yeah, don't worry about any of that. I'm sure your food supply is going to stay safe. Oh, and the Department of Health, whatever. You guys are anti-vaxxers anyway, so when the measles outbreak that's happening right now in Texas, for absolutely no reason, did you know that measles was officially declared extinct 30 years ago and would have remained so if people would have taken the fucking vaccine? But no, fuck around and find out. Well, there's a bunch of people in Texas that have measles real bad because 3 of them had died. And the epidemic is spreading. Have fun with that, you anti-vaxxers. In regards to the cuts at the Department of Education, this should not affect the MAGA faithful because you're not sending any of your kids to college anyway. So when they cut FAFSA or the Pell Grants, which were specifically designed so that your children might have a better future than you're not sending your kids to college anyway because what was good enough for me is good enough for them. By golly, my grandpappy lived in this very same house. Think about that for a fucking minute. Because your kids ain't going to college because you can't afford it, because they can't get loans and they can't get education, which works great for corporations because stupid people have to work menial jobs for low wages. So, your lot in life, it isn't getting any better. By the way, did you vote for that? Did you vote for that for your children's future? I'm not sure because I can't keep up with the mega morons. Oh, the Environmental Protection Agency too. Listen, don't worry about that either, you mega faithful. That's what you voted for, was for them to gut environmental protections. Protections for people. So they dump poison in your river or your lake, or build a refinery next to your home, or pump plastic toxins into the air where you breathe, where you live. Got it backwards. Live and breathe. Because that's where corporations build these horrible places. Low-income areas, because you can't fight back. Because you don't have any money. Because you're broke. Is that what you voted for? Oh, in summary also, you know what, I could go on and on and on. I've got a list of 15 federal agencies here that so far have suffered cuts. But I want to leave the mega faithful for this one. This is a really good question for y'all. Did you vote for the Trump administration to close the national parks, to gut the Forest Service? Right now there's a really nice wildfire burning in North Carolina. But we made cuts to FEMA so when it burns through your forests and burns down your houses, don't come looking for help. Because that's what you voted for and that's what you wanted. That's right. Cut waste, cut spending, cut fraud, gut these liberals, stick it to the libtards. These liberal agencies that don't do nothing for us. Right, they don't. So when you can't get a reservation to go to a national park this summer, I hope you realize that's a result of what you voted for. And by the way, did you vote for that? That's our land. Did you vote for the federal government to cut those budgets so that there wouldn't be park rangers, so the toilets wouldn't be cleaned, the garbage wouldn't be collected, there'd be chains across the parking lots because there's nobody to monitor, so you can't go? These are just a bunch of my thoughts random right now. Unbelievable Reality Podcast. Once again, I'm Roy Arthur. If you don't like my opinions, you don't like my facts, you don't like my research, you don't like my comments, then fucking turn it off and don't watch. If you do, please follow, please comment, please share. Your support is appreciated and acknowledged, and I'm not going away.